we learned about yesterday. Okay, so let's write it down up at the top up there. So we have x equals negative b. Add, you should be writing this down, add and subtract square root of b squared. Can you see? B squared minus 4a c. And then we divide everything by 2a. X equals negative b, add or subtract square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And this is all based on our general form equation where we have y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay. And I'm going to do these a little bit with you because we should get some more practice. So first thing we want to do is just identify a, b, and c in our equation. So look at part A there. What's my value for a? 1. There's no number there, so it's just 1. What about b? 2. And c? Good, negative 5. Okay. So we want to solve these using the quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and plug our numbers in to our equation up here. So we've got x equals negative 2. Add or subtract square root of 2 squared minus 4 times a, so times 1 times c, so times negative 5, divided by 2a, so 2 times 1. Okay. Is that part okay? Seemed like most people got this far and they were okay on that. We're just plugging in a for my a's, b for the b's, and c for the c. But then it seemed like we kind of fell apart here. So let's look at this. We want to simplify. We want to simplify all of this. And you start by simplifying what's inside the square root. So I'm going to just kind of copy this down. I have negative 2 plus or minus square root. Oh, that really wonky. What's 2 squared? 4 minus 4 times 1. 4 and 4 times negative 5. Negative 20, right? So, but then I'm going to subtract negative 20, right? And then I have this 2 times 1, that's just 2. And when I have 4 minus negative 20, that's just 4 plus 20, right? So now I have negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 24 divided by 2. Is 24, can I figure, is there a number that I can multiply by itself to get to 24? Does 24 have like a, is it a perfect square? That's what we call it. I can add 12 and 12 to get to 24, but can I multiply a number? No. 4 times 4, that's 16. 5 times 5 is 25, right? 24 is right in between. There's not a whole number. So I wonder if you've seen this before. If you take 24, we're going to do what's called the prime factorization. Prime factorization. So tell me two numbers that multiply together to give you 24. Any two. 2 and 12. Is that what you said? Okay. Can I break down 2 any further? No, because only factors are like 2 in itself, right? Or 2 and 1. So 2, and then what are two numbers that multiply together to get to 12? 6 and 2, good. And again, 2 I can't break down any further. What about 6? 3 and 2, right? So in other words, 24 is the same thing as 2 times 2 times 2 times 3, yeah? Or it's like 2 squared times 6. Okay, yes, I'll explain how this is actually connected. Just give me a sec. Okay, so I have 2 squared times 6, right? That's 24. That means if I want to find the square root of this, I can like take a 2 out of my square root, and this becomes -2 plus or minus 2 radical 6 over 2. Does this ring any bells? This is like something you should have learned long, long ago. How to do like this and how to change radical 24 into 2 radical 6. No? No? Okay. It's like, might be too much. What else we can do? Let's do this instead. Let's do this instead because we really don't have time to go backwards and do that. So let's just back up. This is -2 plus or minus the square root of 24, and let's use our calculators to help us. Can I do that? Okay. So if I plug in -2, right, this is plus radical 24 divided by 2. That's going to be one of my solutions. Okay, it's going to be 1.45. 1.45. And my second solution, I do the same thing except for I have to subtract instead, right? -2 minus the square root of 24 divided by 2. And that's my second solution, -3.45. Do you see how I got those numbers? Maybe? Yes? Sort of? Right? So this part here, are we okay with this part? How we got there? Right? I just plugged in my numbers into ABC. I simplified underneath the radical. Everything else stayed the same. But then this kind of splits into two parts. I have -2 plus the square root of 24 over 2 and -2 minus the square root of 24 over 2. Remember, these we almost always have two different solutions, right? So this is my first solution. This is my second solution. I have no idea, like looking at that -2 plus the square root of 24 divided by 2, I don't know if that's like -5 or 10 or 20. I don't know what the value of that is just by looking at it. And that's why I plugged it in my calculator and I found out this is 1.45-ish. And this one was -3.45. Okay. So if those are the solutions to my quadratic, that means that those are my x-intercepts. So I can plot those on my graph. Plot those on my graph. And I'm not going to figure out my vertex or anything, but that's going to be kind of the general graph of that parabola. Can we look at the next one? Let's look at the next one. Try again. So we have A, B, and C. What's my A and B? Yeah, it's 2. What's B? Good, -8. And what's C? 8. So we're going to plug that into our equation. X equals -B. So that's -8. Add or subtract the square root of -8 squared minus 4 times 2 times 8. Divided by 2 times 2. And we're simplifying. What happens here? -8. +8. Add or subtract the square root. What's -8 squared? 64. And it's a positive 64. I saw a bunch of you guys say -8 squared. It should be this -8 times -8 becomes positive. So 64 minus, what's 4 times 2? 8. And then 8 times 8? 64. And then all divided by 2 times 2 is? So what happens underneath the square root symbol there? What's 64 minus 0? Or 64 minus 64 is? 0. So now I have 8 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 4. But what's the square root of 0? 0. So I'm really saying 8 plus 0 divided by 4 and 8 minus 0 divided by 4. Are those different? No, they're the same thing. They're just both saying 8 divided by 4. What does that give us? 2. Okay, so for this one, I don't have 2 x-intercepts. I just have 1 x-intercept. So it's going to be a parabola that looks like this. It just like kind of touches down at the x-axis and then goes back up. There's just 1 x-intercept. We call this a double root. Okay. And then we've got one more. What's my A in part C? And what's B? 2. And C? Ooh. Is this one equal to 0? No, we got to make it equal 0. How am I going to make this equal 0? Yeah, I got to subtract that 3 over here. So that's really -x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. So what's my value of C? -3. Good. Okay, use my formula again. X equals negative b, so negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 2 squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Then we got to simplify. X equals negative 2 plus or minus square root two squared. It's 2 squared. 4 minus, what's 4 times negative 1? Negative 4. And what's negative 4 times negative 3? Positive 12. So I'm taking 4 minus 12 over 2 times negative 1, negative 2. So now I've got x is equal to negative 2 plus or minus square root of 4 minus 12. The 8 was good, but 4 minus 12. 12 minus 4 is 8. Negative 8 divided by negative 2. Can you guys plug that in your calculator, just the square root of negative 8? What happens? It gives you an error, right? Huh? Oh, how do you do it? I think it's like second and then the up button. I think if you keep going, if you keep doing it. I don't remember. If you give it to me, I can play around with it and fix it. Is it working? No. Oh, I think that's weird. Maybe it's like second plus or something. I don't remember. But look, when I plug in the square root of negative 8, it tells me I get a non-real answer. This is called an imaginary number. An imaginary number. Huh? Yeah, there's a way to like brighten the screen. I just can't. If I had it, I could play around with it and fix it. But have you guys ever seen like I as a number? You ever seen that before? I is the square root of negative 1. It's an imaginary number. Okay? Because there's no two numbers that I can never take. Like if I take two positive ones, I'm going to end up with a positive. If I take two negatives, I'm going to end up with a positive. There's no way to get to a negative number by multiplying two of the same number together. Okay? Have I lost you? We're in like imaginary world now.
No, I said there's so many numbers that they
Yeah. Yeah. So we like deal with real numbers, but mathematicians start looking at imaginary numbers and complex numbers, and you can, enter into like new dimensions when you go there. But for now, what this tells me is that this graph doesn't have an x-intercept. It's a parabola that looks like this. It's never going to cross the x-intercept or the x-axis. Okay. Can we just go back up, scroll back up? Well, you don't have to scroll. I have to scroll. Okay. And we want to look at this part right here. B squared minus 4ac. That's this part underneath the square root symbol. So what's a b squared minus 4ac equal in this first part? I just circled it. And it's 24. What did b squared minus 4ac, what did it equal in this second part? It was 0. And in the last part, what was it? Negative 8. So b squared minus 4ac, the part that's underneath the square root symbol, tells you how many types of solutions, how many and the type of solutions that the quadratic has. So if this, there's kind of three options. It can be a positive number, it can be a negative number, or it can be 0. If we end up with a positive number, there's going to be two solutions, two real solutions. When it's 0, when I have 0 under the square root, it's going to just be one real solution, like we saw in part B. And that's because if I add 0 or subtract 0, it doesn't change it. There's just one solution there. And then when we have a negative number, there are two imaginary solutions. Imaginary solutions. Okay, let's look at the other side. So again, let's copy down quadratic formula. X equals negative b, add or subtract square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And this part right here, we call this the discriminant. The discriminant, b squared minus 4ac is called the discriminant. And if I look at the discriminant, I figure out what that value is, I can figure out how many solutions the parabola is going to have, how many solutions the quadratic is going to have. So if b squared minus 4ac is positive, if it's greater than 0, then there are two real solutions. Solutions, I'm going to abbreviate that. Two real solutions, which corresponds to two x-intercepts. Two x-intercepts. If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, there is one real solution and one x-intercept. And if b squared minus 4ac is negative, if it's less than 0, there are two imaginary solutions. And 0 x-intercepts. Okay? If you need to go get a drink or something, you can. Okay, so what we're doing on this page is we're finding the discriminant. We're figuring out what the discriminant is. So b squared minus 4ac. Can we just go through and just identify a, b, and c for all of these? In part 1, what's my a? What is a? 1. What is b and c? 25. Okay, so first part, you're finding the discriminant. Just the b squared minus 4ac. It's the worst, I'm sorry. That's happened to me before, like teaching yoga classes. And I like, at the end of the yoga class, everyone like lays down, is like really, really peaceful and like quiet. And there was one time I had a cough and it was like, I could just feel it coming. And I was like trying to drink, I don't think I had water. There's like nothing I could do. I just like couldn't stop coughing. I felt so bad. So I feel your pain. I'm sorry. Okay. So calculate the discriminant. And then from whatever that discriminant is it positive? Is it negative? Is it 0? That tells you how many solutions the equation is going to have. You're either going to have 2 solutions, well, 2 real solutions, 1 real solution, or 2 imaginary solutions. Okay? And then you got to solve it. You got to figure out what x is. And you can use the quadratic formula to do that, or you can use another way if you want to. Okay? Same thing in part 2, number 2. Find the discriminant first. So look at what's a in number 2. What's a? 1. What's b? 5. And c is 10. Same questions. So find the discriminant, find out how many solutions, and then solve the equation.